Okay, so second part of anxiety, you're going to be looking at the AO3 points here. Evaluate the negative effects, apply it. We'll look a bit more of that in lesson, but and evaluate the positive effects. Okay, so the first one we're looking at is that Johnson and Scott. Participants may focus on a weapon because they are surprised, not because they are anxious. So the misconception, or what they're arguing is wrong here, is that we're saying that the weapon is anxiety. Okay, and obviously a weapon would increase anxiety, but the negative point is that maybe it's just being surprised about seeing the blood in the weapon rather than it actually being anxiety. So Pickle looked at this in 1998, used scissors, handgun, wallet, and chicken in the hairdressers. Okay, so the chicken is in there obviously to be the surprise, as opposed to the handgun. So he proved here that eyewitness accuracy was poorer for high unusualness. So a chicken and a handgun were the most surprising, and they were the least. The performance of eyewitness testimony was the least on those two. Weapon focus effect could be due to surprise, not anxiety or threat, and therefore tells us nothing about the effects of anxiety. Okay, so a really good point that Pickle, against Johnson and Scott, said it's about surprise, about something being different rather than an actual weapon. So the link from anxiety to weapon doesn't exist. Extraneous variables in the real life bank robbery. Real life witnesses are interviewed sometime after the event. Many things happen to them in the meantime. The experiments can control this. So any real life study, a longitudinal study, okay, this becomes a variable that we must discuss. Extraneous variables, they had no control over the extraneous variables, therefore other things may have happened, such as discussing the event with others, read about it in the news. All of these things we know influence our memory and would have an effect, and they haven't been controlled for. So these extraneous variables are responsible for accuracy or inaccuracy of the report. So anything, in general in psychology, if you ever see a longitudinal study, a real life study, then the idea of extraneous variables and the fact that they haven't controlled for these other things that might have affected them become a big point. Ethics. Creating anxiety in a participant is potentially unethical because it may subject people to psychological harm just for research. Real life studies are beneficial, but therefore it is important to use people who have experience of a real life event and not an artificial one. So this is just a paragraph about ethics. Ethics do not challenge the findings, but they raise questions about how to conduct anxiety research. So make notes of that. We'll work on how to write the perfect ethical paragraph for you, but it's a discussion there. Obviously within crimes and looking at weapons and guns is way more ethical, we'll have a lot more kind of ethical issues than some of the other stuff we looked in memory, like how many words can you remember, how many numbers can you remember. So it's important that you realise that when we're looking at these, an ethical paragraph would be good for you. The inverted U, so that would be another one of your AO1s, would be the inverted U. Anxiety is difficult to measure and define because it's so many elements: cognitive, behavioural, emotional, and physical. The inverted U explanation assumes that one of these is linked to poor performance. The explanation fails to account for other factors like emotional experiencing or witnessing a crime such as fear or terror and their effect on accuracy. So it's just inverted U is okay. It explains some differences. It can explain a lot, but it is too simple. There is obviously the anxiety, the factors around accuracy of eyewitness testimony are going to be huge. And we've looked at misleading questions, but you've got things like gender differences, you've got age differences, you've got their eyesight, you've got have they been in these situations before? Do they, how do they respond to stress? All of these personality factors, physical factors, everything. All right, so it's too simple. The inverted U. Demand characteristics. Most participants in controlled lab studies are aware they are watching a film that may have been staged. Could a crime for a reason to do with this study? Could be a crime for a reason to do with this study. They may work out what is the true nature of the study and given the responses to help the researcher. So the research is not measuring the accuracy of eyewitness testimony, just how helpful people can be. this reduces the validity. Hopefully you're starting to get to grips with the demand characteristics paragraph, but anytime you're in a lab study, anytime you're attempting to deceive, maybe you may think you're doing a great job, but the people in the lab, in the experiment, kind of figure out, oh, something's going on here, and they play along, and they might help you with your amazing study, but actually they were shown demand characteristics and they were just doing what they thought you wanted to do rather than real life, and therefore that reduces the validity of any experiment that's completed in a lab study. Okay, cool. Cognitive interview.